I just read something really interesting, and it made me think of a bunch of different books I've read recently, which is this idea of like kind of how do you decolonize your understanding of history. And it was from this book in the middle, Rescuing the Gospel from the Cowboys. And it was just this line about that the West gives little value to what we have to say about ourselves, that the West gives basically no value to how Native Americans describe and talk about themselves. And it made me think about all these different books that I've read recently, which are, I think, looking to correct that very problem. So let's go through them real quick. This one is 100 Years War on Palestine. And I think when we look at what's going on over there, when we look at what's happening just in the dialogues going on social media, there is this desire from one side to dominate the way the story is being told. And I think this idea of allowing people to talk about themselves, they have a right to narrate their own history. This is a great example of how that is done. Another one, if you want to hear about how an African, a descendant of Africans, talks about colonial history, the history of the slave trade, that is done in this book by Walter Rodney brilliantly. Another example would be Unsettling Truths and the Ongoing Dehumanizing Legacy of the Doctrine of Discovery. This is an amazing book that I have not heard much about, but it is, again, half Navajo, Korean immigrant, talking about the church's role in colonization, in the Doctrine of Discovery and Manifest Destiny, kind of looking at the politics and the theological underpinnings behind American history. Really amazing. This book is dealing with the difficulties that Christian Native Americans have in expressing their faith in a way that respects their ancestry and their traditions. And it really deals with the way that white evangelical and fundamentalist Christians believe that their way is the only way and the God-ordained way, and that anything that they decide to do is ordained by God. And then this book, Jesus and John Wayne, is really just a history of all of those different choices and how they have led up to Trump in the 20th and 21st century. And then last but not least, Reading While Black by Esau McCaulley is a black theologian from Alabama talking about the history of the theological thought of the black church and the way that it relates to social justice, and making a specific point that white evangelical church has largely ignored the black church and what it has to say about race and justice, and issues that deeply concern me and a lot of other people. So I just thought all of those books kind of tie together, and I'm really curious as what other people are reading. But I think the main theme is that this idea of allowing people to speak for themselves, and the way that changes you, because the